Hello, welcome back to Inspiring Thoughts, our study in practical Christianity. Today we're going to look at what causes strife from James 4 1 to 5. What is the source of quarrels and conflicts among you? Is the source not your pleasures that wage war in your body's parts? You lust and do not have, so you commit murder. You are envious and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, so that you may spend what you request on your pleasures. You adulteresses, do you not know that friendship with the world is hostility toward God? Therefore, whoever wants to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. What do you think that the scripture says to no purpose? He jealously desires the Spirit whom he has made to dwell in us. Where do quarrels and conflicts have their source? Why don't we have what we want or need? James clearly places the blame for our quarrels and conflicts right at our own feet. He tells us our conflicts come from our own selfish desires. We see something someone else has and we want it, so we start a quarrel to obtain it. We see someone else getting more attention than us, and we start conflict in order to bring the attention to ourselves. He goes on to say we commit murder in order to get what we want. You say, I have never committed murder or never murdered anyone in my life. But Jesus says, if you look on someone angrily, you have committed murder in your hearts. When we think evil of a person, we have already committed murder before God because we have damaged God's image, by thinking evil of one who shares God's image, since all persons were created in God's image. Why don't we have what we want? What does he mean by we ask wrongly? James says we don't have what we need or desire for two reasons. First, we don't ask God for what we need or desire. And second, when we ask wrongly. We ask God for what we want. We don't ask God for what we want because we are trying to acquire it on our own. We've taken our eyes off of God as the supplier of every need or desire. God told us to delight ourselves in Him, and He would give us the desires of our hearts. So the only explanation for not asking God for what we desire is that we have taken our eyes off of Him, or we don't believe or we don't believe what He told us. But that brings us to a second and bigger, probably the bigger reason we don't get what we desire. We ask with wrong motives. Did you ever have a child who asked you for things and their motivation was greed and selfishness just to get it and have more stuff? Did you feel like giving this child anything other than what they really needed? Why not? God our Father desires for His children to be mature and obedient. So when we are asking Him for our desires only for the purposes of our egos, He may not desire to grant us other than the three basic needs. How is asking with wrong motives? Friendship with the world. And why does this make us enemies of God? When we ask for things bigger than what we have, for homes bigger than what we have, flashier cars, fancier clothes, etc., etc., that are not really needs, but are really just stokers. We are becoming like the world, desiring to replace our security from being in God to the world's goods being our security. When we place anything above our trust in God, we are replacing God. In making the world's goods our security, we are in essence making them our God. And this makes us enemies with God. There is only room for one God in our lives. God has placed His Spirit within us at our new birth, and that is what makes us His child. And as such, our spirit should strongly desire fellowship with God and thus draw us closer to Him. When our desires for blessings become greater than our desire for the blessor, we have exchanged our God. Where are our desires at odds with God's desires? Let's examine our motives this week and try to see where we are putting ourselves at odds with God. Thank you, and God bless.